Shalom Aleichem, my dear brothers and sisters. In this video, I would like to talk to you about the laws of revenge according to the Torah and something called the cities of refuges or refuge. Now, this comes from the book of Numbers, chapter 35, starting, I think, verse 9 and on. And basically, here is how it works. Now, before I start, I should tell you this that these laws nowadays do not get practiced in Israel, and the main reason I would say is that because Israel is not a religious country, and another reason is that we don't currently have the court, what's called the Sanhedrin, the Jewish religious court that has the power to impose its laws, right? So since we don't have that nowadays, at least, therefore it's not really practiced. But here's how God intended for the laws to work. So according to the laws of Torah, if a person, let's say, kills another person, then the relatives of that other person are able to take revenge, meaning they are able to kill the killer and not get punished for it by the Jewish court. Now, this applies when the killer, the initial killer, killed another person on purpose, or even not on purpose but due to negligence. So, for example, let's say somebody with negligence, it was chopping wood or something and threw the axe and, hit somebody and killed somebody. This is called an accidental but negligent type of murder, right? And in that case, the relatives can actually take revenge and kill that person. Now again, this is not something that's practiced today because we don't have the religious country and we don't have the religious court that has the power to impose Jewish Torah law. Now, what happens is by the way, another thing I should mention is that if the person is an accidental killer, let's say, even due to negligence, and just because the relatives have a right to kill him, that doesn't mean he does not have a right to defend himself. The Torah never took away that right from him. So theoretically, the person can defend himself, and he's in self-defense, he can kill the relative who's trying to kill him. And the court would not punish him for that. Why? Because he was defending himself. So therefore, the relatives also have that risk of getting killed by the first person in self-defense. So therefore, it's not something it's basically risky business. Now, if you think about it at first glance, it sounds a little bit like outdated, barbaric. God forbid to say that about the Torah law, but that's what it sounds like to our modern minds because we, not used to laws like this. But I would like to offer a logic for this, for such a thing. When a person kills someone, let's say negligently, right? We tend to think of it, okay, it's an accidental murder, therefore it's not really a big deal. But from the Torah perspective, it is a big deal. If a person was negligent and because of that somebody died, this is a huge deal. If somebody drinks and drives, for example, and he runs over some person, right? Don't forget that due to negligence, somebody lost a father, or somebody lost a husband, or a wife. And therefore, it is a big deal. Nowadays, in a secular country, if a person does something like that, he gets maybe to prison for a couple of years, 2 years, and that's it, and he gets out. And therefore, that's why I think nowadays you have people do these negligent type of things. We have drunk drivers or other types of negligence. But according to the Torah law, the person who would be about to sit down, who is about to sit down by his wheel, and while he's drunk, he would give it much more thought. Why? Because he knows that theoretically he could get killed if something like that was to happen. So, I do see logic in this, meaning it's something that's the Torah shows us what a severe thing it is to kill someone, even when it's unintentional. but if there's negligence involved. Now, if a person, let's say, killed somebody with totally unintentional and there was absolutely no negligence involved, then this is a whole different story. The relatives have no right to touch him, and if they do something against them, then the court will, punish them accordingly. Okay, so now another thing I wanted to talk about is the concept of the cities of refuge, which the Torah mentions them in, like I said, in the book of Numbers, chapter 35, starting at verse 9 and on. And what it is that someone who has killed another person, let's say due to negligence, then there is a way out for him to save himself from the relatives who are trying to take revenge. And the way he can save himself, first of all, he can fight, like I said, in self-defense. But also, there's another way. He can flee to something called the cities of refuge. And throughout the land of Israel, there was 6 such cities. 3 cities were on one side of the Jordan River, and then 3 cities were on the other side of the Jordan River. Where the country Jordan is today, there was 3 cities there, and then where Israel is today, there was another 3 cities there. So these are called, these were the 6 cities of refuge. Now, in addition to those, there were 48, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 48 or 49 cities of the Leviim, where the Levites used to live. And those cities were also, they served also as the cities of refugees. And what it is that if a person accidentally or negligently kills someone, right, what he could do is he could flee to one of these cities, and as soon as he gets into one of these cities of refugee, then no relative can touch him there. No relative can go and do anything to him there. He's basically saved in these cities. Until when? Until the court date. When the court grabs a hold of this case, basically, then they send special people from the court, special agents, and they bring him out of the city of refuge, and they bring him to the court. And then once the court decided that there was no intention involved, then they would send him back to the city of refuge. And when they would send him back to the city of refuge, they would actually send guards with him to make sure that no relatives, try to do anything against him before he gets to the city of refuge. And the person, if he was deemed to be negligently responsible for the death of someone, he would actually stay in this city of refuge, and no relatives can touch him. Now the question is, how long does he have to stay them? How long does he have to stay there to be safe from the relatives? And the answer to that is that he stays there until the Kohen Gadol passes away. Now, who is the Kohen Gadol? Kohen Gadol is the main servant in the temple, the head servant in the temple. Or sometimes we call him the head priest. And who that is basically a descendant of Aaron, peace be upon him, the brother of Moses. So all the descendants of Aaron, they were called the Kohanim, like the servants in the temple, basically, the priests. And in every generation, one of them was like the main one, the head one, who's in charge of all the other Kohanim. So when the Kohen Gadol, meaning the head priest of that generation, passes away, that's when this accidental murder or negligent murder is free to leave the city of refuge. And as soon as that happens, then none of the relatives are allowed to touch him or do any revenge against him. So this is pretty much the laws of revenge. Now, one thing I should mention, that this is really the only exception to revenge. Generally speaking, for other reasons, the Torah actually commands us not to take revenge against each other, right? So this is the only exception, as far as I know, when it comes to murder. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is the only mistake. Now, this is the laws, the way I understand it. Please keep in mind that I could make mistakes, and if I made a mistake in what I just said, may God forgive me. Try to explain it or retell to the best of my knowledge, but as human beings, sometimes we make mistakes, and I didn't read all the sources and everything that is to read about it, or even probably half of it, or that. Therefore, please just keep that in mind that I could be making a mistake. But this is, as far as I know, these are the laws of revenge and the cities of refuge, and that's pretty much how things worked back in the days when we had the Jewish government in Israel. Thank you for watching, and have a good night or day, depending on where you are. Thank you.